communications mobile media industry is impacted by fraud in several ways, and it's a facilitator of fraud in several ways, and we've seen a massive increase in attacks against this marketplace over the past year. In terms of multi-hundreds of % increases of attacks against account information and account logins, for example, which is kind of demonstrates how they're integral to the scams and frauds and scenarios that are happening across industries. The CMM industry itself has its own fraud concerns. They're selling services, whether it's access to TV services, and therefore are concerned about manipulation and service abuse, shared passwords, shared access, users sharing their passwords to facilitate not paying for membership to their service and distributing it between family and friends, for example. It could be the telecoms industry. They're providing high-end devices, high-end equipment. They're concerned about fraud in terms of just genuine online sales and the move to online sales that's been forced over the past 2 years. So if you think about digitalization for the telecoms organizations, many of them were retail-based, with a percentage of their customer base online. Over the past 2 years, that's had to move substantially to the digital marketplace, and that will probably continue and grow as they go forward because there's operational efficiencies in selling online from a cost perspective for them. But of course, that then brings them into the realm of higher scale and volumes of fraud and fraud attacks themselves. The biggest change, though, is in account self-service and account self-management, as many of these organizations have had to move their operations digitally as well, and people want to manage their telco services, their media services via apps. They want to be able to change their details, change their payment details, change their address, update contact information, etc. via self-service apps. They want to see their bills and see what they've ordered, what they've purchased, etc. Via these services. Issue being is those kind of services, consumers want instant access. They want to be able to access their account instantaneously with minimal friction. Operators, providers want to provide that capability as well. And in doing so, that opens the opportunities for fraud and manipulation. And not so much direct attacks, but in terms of account manipulation, account data gathering, should we say. So, for an example, me as a fraudster, I may wish to verify some credentials I've obtained via a data breach. I've got a username and password. I may test that username and password against a telco account in order to verify that that username and password is in utilization. If it's in utilization, I can then see the account. What information can I see? Can I obtain? It may not be seen as that substantial because maybe I can't see the payment details and the full payment details. I can only see the last 4 digits of the card that's used to pay for the bill, for example. But I can see those last 4 digits. I can see the bill. I can see the bill amount. I can see the date the bill was going to be paid. As such, I can utilize that information in other attacks I do against other industries. The most common one at the moment being the scams that are operated in kind of push payment and authorized push payment. So I actually may ring up the end customer and pretend to be a bank or a tax institution, for example. And if I'm pretending to be a bank, I may then say, well, look, I can validate the last 4 digits of your card. Here's your last 4 digits of your card. I can validate you actually paid your telecoms bill of £23 or $23 on the 15th of the month. As such, it gives me a validation of that I am an entity accessing their personal information. The fact that I've got that personal information from compromising their telco account, the customer is not aware, maybe until later, until they've fallen prey to the scam, they report the fraud, an investigation is done, and the compromise is kind of breached, highlighted to be breached elsewhere. That is then a brand issue for the telco. They've not lost anything financially necessarily from that fraud attack, but from a brand aspect, if they're not seen to be protecting the consumer information, the customer information adequately, that can be an impact as well. So the CMM media is kind of suffering at both ends of the spectrum. They are fraud issues themselves, offering their own digital services and attacks that are happening in that space, but then they've got attacks against the platforms they provide and the information they provide to give their customer a good experience. And as such, they've got to have a viewpoint of both aspects of the situation and understand both aspects of the situation in order to tackle that effectively. So they need to have a comprehensive way of doing that and can no longer be seen in their own right as well. They can no longer look at themselves as a media organisation or as a telco organisation themselves and dealing with their fraud. They've got to understand that their data is utilised and their consumers' data is being targeted in worldwide, global, cross-industry scams, financial scams, etc. And therefore need to be able to protect their consumer going forward, not only themselves and their own revenue, but their consumers' data and their consumers' information as well. As such, they will ultimately protect their brand.